Beautiful.
Wonderful. All right. Good shit, everybody. We got that was the first time we've needed to double take the claps. So maybe we're a bit tired. Pro League's just come to the close. It's been 5 weeks of Counter-Strike non-stop action.
5 weeks for you and me, for Mr. Moses O'Toole over there. Couple of weeks, but enough for him to get a beautiful tan.
That's true, Jason. You are looking very brown. You've been prioritizing the sun, it seems.
I have. I've been getting out there into the world. I've been going for a run up the coast. I found like a nice, cozy spot that has a big. There's no beaches on Malta. That's the one thing I'll say. Like I've seen very few.
There's
beaches.
A few, Jason.
There's a few, but not.
You know what, Jason? There's no beaches in Katowice either, mate.
That's true. That's a good point.
Well, no, you could have gone wakeboarding with Parleblet and Maui. That did look like a fun experience. I think Kinga was there filming.
They went to Auschwitz as well.
Yeah, all the fun spots, Jason.
You were talking water sports a moment ago and beaches, and I thought I would go with wakeboarding, but that's taken a turn. So anyway, moving swiftly on. It's good, Jason, that you're embracing the healthy habits. I've been trying to do the same. I've been going around to Henry's establishment, which is where we built a gym once upon a time. It's the basement. It's below the swimming pool. So it's very basic equipment, but it's something. It's a bit of. Last night when I finished casting the first 2 maps, I went to Henry's and we put Counter-Strike on the TV, and we're working out in the gym. You don't get. That's
iron to double overtime.
Yeah, it's kind of like the geek level workout experience. So that was pretty unique. Here's the problem though, Jason. We weren't able to his TV in the basement. We weren't able to put Twitch on, so we had to watch YouTube. So the only YouTube stream we could find was an Indonesian stream.
Oh, dear.
Filipino? I usually it's a Filipino one. I see. Oh, there's a Serbian one actually. Relog is on YouTube too.
Yeah, so I did find that out after the case once I got home because I left to watch maps 4 and 5 from home. But it was a grand final that started like real slow. Like the first 2 maps I did were 16-7s, and it was like both teams picks, and it was like, fuck, okay. It
was reminiscent of the final last year between Navi and Vitality, right? Which first 4 maps were like one-sided each way, and then the Mirage one, the decider was 16-14 for Navi, and they won the Grand Slam.
Yeah, it's weird. Like I guess we're still kind of learning about best of 5s, and again, of course, there's another discussion about best of 5s today. These things always love to pop up. But this is the curious nature of it. Like, there's so many trains of thought, right? For some people, they say it's way too long of a viewing experience. Like, I can't be putting aside that many hours of my day to watch this, to stay engaged the entire time. And like, I can understand that angle. But then I look at it from like if we're just thinking about the Counter-Strike purely, like the way that I start to frame this in my head is I always like reference this to like UFC fights and stuff, right? Like a championship fight for a UFC fight is 5 rounds, but like, a match that's not for the belt is only 3 rounds. And like, it's a test. You're going into, I think like the term they use in boxing for it is like deep waters or whatever, when you're getting into the later rounds. Maybe I'm misusing that, but we can frame it however. And when the games go on, and especially in arenas, as the Counter-Strike level, because players are getting more tired, and now it's about how focused can you stay, or can you like thrive in the chaos? Because the chaos starts to happen when players are getting a bit looser, and then that's why the games, as the best of 5 goes deeper, it's not obviously not always. If the two teams are of like a comparable level, it can get really nuts. Because like you're thinking about the players in the server boys, it was pretty wild last night. The ZywOo broke the record. That's fucking insane.
That was nuts. I mean, he had the benefit of, actually, I'm not even going to really make any, he did have 4 overtimes with which to do it. That probably helped a little bit, but I'm not going to really hold that against him, obviously,
50,
anyway.
Man.
I know, he was nuts. It was actually crazy to watch how impactful he was in the server. And especially when you think about it, I think on the overpass map as well, he went a stretch of like 10 to 12 rounds where he only got like 3 kills. Like there was like half of the map, like he just was like quiet. He went absent, and he still broke the record by like I think like 13 kills at the end of the day.
We went plus 50 with the next closest person in the server for the entire series was in terms of KD, no, OC with plus 13, right? Kill death. Right? Just the fact that I know Zai was playing he's like AWPing and shit, so he's obviously doing a bit more saving. But that's fucking crazy. Like that's not close. It's not like 13 to 20. That's like plus 50, like absolutely wild, man.
And he's been incredible this whole tournament. In the group stages, in the playoffs, he kept it up, and in the grand final, like he ended the tournament with a 1.42 rating over 21 maps. Like that's insanely good. And if you look at that grand final, it delivered. Elige was underwhelming. Really, I was kind of disappointed with him. Nitro ended up having a better game than Elige. Like that's you can't have that.
Yeah.
In a grand final if you want to win against a team like Vitality. But the whole best of 5 thing, man, I'm generally against it. And then we have great finals that happen and you're like, wow, like imagine if we were denied that, like the Cologne grand final, for example, right? Like in recent history, in recent memory, that's one of the better ones, right? I feel like, though, I think Jason, you tweeted out to Dupree that you said you would probably leave it for like Katowice and Cologne only. And I think that's kind of good middle ground because, I'm just happy that there's no more best of ones, for example, in ESL tournaments. That bothers me when it comes to the RMR and the Major, but that's a whole different topic. But best of threes
Aren't there for the play-ins? For the Katowice and Colognes, aren't they
just the
best
first,
of ones?
Just the first game.
Yeah.
But you can't
Which
go
is
out
alright.
or go through without playing a best of 3.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I can see a best of 5 because you really get to test the pool of both teams, and it is also a sort of an endurance battle, right? Like it's different, but the final is amazing, but then you also see that it lasts for 7 or 8 hours for everyone involved. Like that's just too long. And I'm not even talking about the economics of it and booking venues and whatnot. Just like even to watch that game for so long, right? It's like it's too much. So I feel if I have to choose between the two, I would choose to just not have best of 5s, right? If you have to pick one or the other. But if there's a middle ground, it would be for only like 1 or 2 biggest tournaments. You have it like as a sort of a best of 5, because also Pro League has been, you had 5 best of 3s in groups, you had a long playoffs, like you already played a massive amount of games. You don't need a best of 5 in the end really to top it all off.
So you think they've been like measured up enough there, Yanko?
Yes,
Like they've done.
that's the point.
Yeah, there's a good body of work that you've built up through a season of Pro League. Like you're fighting a lot of different teams.
But the last week, the sentiment from the players, like this was consistent with teams who played in earlier groups, was, oh yeah, we haven't played officials in a couple of weeks. And I definitely get that standpoint. Like you're not as like ready to go mentally. You when you're jumping in the server, it's cold. You're kind of hoping that everything works, right? You haven't tested it in this environment in several weeks, and then when they come in, there's always going to be that concern of coming in cold. So I don't know how you can deal with that, because there's arguments that could be made even with. I saw your conversation today on Twitter, Jason, with Dupree. And you were talking about the best of 5s, and something you were talking about there with Katowice and Cologne is not having it so any team skips straight to the semis, and having an 8-team bracket and scaling the event up as it goes. So the Thursday, Friday being a smaller type venue, and then the Saturday, Sunday scaling it up into the arenas. So we have the 8 teams get through, and I think like stuff like that is all really good. I think like all of that kind of stuff is how we need to be looking with the championship level of these events. And then add the best of 5s on top for those. I think that's cool. But for Pro League, is there a way to fix that? Like with the problems we're talking about here, is there a way for players to not feel like they're coming in cold, or is that just a factor they have to deal with?
I think it's gonna, at the end of the day, I think it's a factor they have to deal with. I think the only way I can think of to fix it would require the players to all be here for a longer period of time. Like if you want them to only come in for a week,
right?
No, which is not, it's definitely not going to happen. The only way to do it would be to say like we're going to play like 2 games of each group this week, or like a game from each group is going to happen this week, and the next week is the second game in each group, and you
That's what we used to do online, remember?
Yeah, which was fine for online, and it was good. But yeah, here when you're on LAN, the players, if they have to pick between, playing for a week and then taking 2 to 3 weeks off and coming back for playoffs, or staying for 4 to 5 weeks and doing the whole event as we go, it's just not going to work.
Well, I have an idea.
Okay.
Right. I just want to, like, on top of this, imagine, okay, so if everybody's like over a 6-week span in the environment we're talking about right now, what if we just said it was only a 3-week span? Like quite literally everybody from start to finish, the max you can be here is 3 weeks, and everybody's expected to be here for 3 weeks, right? And then the first 2 weeks, you literally just play out like, I know we said we don't like best of ones, but just hear out the full plan, and then you guys can tear it down after. Because I'm trying to think outside of the box here. We get everybody for 3 week stint. Everybody comes. They play a round robin best of ones over those weeks. We just have like games constantly, just best of ones. You're having like multiple different streams, and you get like good teams versus some average teams. You get, everybody gets a real crack at things. And then at the end of the group stages, after the 2 weeks, the top, I don't know, let's say we had 32 teams, top 16 teams go into a single elimination bracket, and then we play that out in best of 3 format with a best of 3 final. Like, is that a better format than what we have now?
Isn't that the blast format that we just criticized like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago?
Well, no,
like
16 teams from the group stage qualify out of 32.
Yeah, but you still have that round robin games that don't really have an impact other than seeding. I guess you do. You're eliminating some of the teams, but I think it's
you lost me
similar.
at the best of ones, Chad.
But the thing is, we have to have a way to get the teams right. So the thing is, we just said that players don't like the fact, or I don't know if they don't like the fact, but they have a concern about being cold.
Why are we still caring so much about what players think or want or need? Like, can you explain to me, for example, why are the group stages in Malta instead of in Poland, for example? What was could you tell anywhere where the players were and where things were happening? Did we create any content with them around Malta? No,
I think that's half the problem with this deal, right?
If anything, just put them in Katowice, right? They only need to be here for a week. And believe me, like, when you're on a team, you don't care where you are. Like, you have a game each day. You're not gonna leave the hotel, basically, except for a walk, or I don't know, to maybe go
dinner,
grab some food together as a team, right? That's it. Like, you're just gonna be practicing, getting ready, going over the games, doing prep for the next game, and playing the official, right? And as soon as that's all done, you go home because the group stage is over. So get them all in Katowice for the groups, and then for the playoffs, then you can actually move the whole production. Then it's not too expensive because it's just a week. It's even actually less than other events that you run, where the playoffs now, the whole event runs for 2 weeks or something along those lines, right? And all of a sudden you fixed all the issues that you had this season in terms of technical difficulties and whatnot. You have way more cool content. You have more entertainment because the talent are all together and we can mix and match more and do cool stuff, right? Like, what, the players like Malta more? I'm telling you, there's players after this experience that would rather be in Poland. Why? Because half of them didn't get their luggage, because it's harder to fly to Malta than it is to Krakow or Katowice, right? And there was, like, I don't know, I'm not even talking about, Moldgate and all that stuff. I'm sure they were satisfied with the fact that it was sunny and that, but just the fact that they had shitty connections and some of them had to travel for 10 or 12 hours to get here. I know Nico, for playoffs, he had to sleep in Rome for a night and then leave in the morning to come to Malta because there were no better options for him than that, right? Like, it feels so ridiculous within Europe that you can't have like within 6 or 7 hours sort of a travel day, right? So
that's where I think they missed the mark, though, Yanko, is the sense like part of it, you would assume, is to advertise where we are, but they didn't prioritize that part of.
Bro, every day we are the first shit, obviously. So we always do the pre-show, right? That's a different thing. Pre-show is what you do outside of the games for all the viewers. Pre-game is when we have Liquid Vitality videos, and then that's the pre-game. Pre-show is when we talk about the whole day and what happened yesterday, and you don't dig into the games just yet, right? So every pre-show, I see the same one still, this boat right in Malta, and it's like, this is all we're doing.
It's a nice boat,
and this is like, we're supposed, they're sponsoring this or whatever, and the whole reason that we're there is because of this and yada yada yada. And there was nothing until then. In the playoffs, I finally see this different
hero shots,
hero shots and stuff, and I'm like, oh right, this is how it actually looks like. So I don't know, it just felt so strange to me. I guess that the deal includes that the players are there for the duration, and that's why they set it up this way. But
probably regret that part of the deal.
If that's not the case, then I feel like we just could have done it much cheaper, easier, and gotten a better product out of it.
But they did announce like until 2024, right? Like, so that's.
I think I think this Pro League
They
really
did?
showcased some of the
think so.
oversights. Yeah, they did. I think it just showcased some of the oversights that I think might have just kind of slipped the net in terms of conversations about this deal, which is I'm pretty sure that they're going to be locked into this one.
Yeah, like you take a look at it. ESL Pro League to return to Malta's ESL Gaming and Gaming Malta extend partnership until 2024. ESL Gaming, a part of the ESL FACER Group and the Ministry for the Economy, EU funds and lands through the Gaming Malta Foundation, today announced the extension of their partnership for ESL Pro League until the end of season 20. The expansion will see Malta be the host location of the biggest and longest running Counter-Strike Global Offensive CSGO League, featuring an $850,000 prize pool per season by bringing both conference stage and group stage teams to the Mediterranean island. So this is on the Gaming Malta website, which is the partner. So, which is part of the government, right? So this is a government-funded initiative to bring the event to the island. But you're correct. Like, I feel that it's ESL's. Well, I would assume it would be part of the deal that it's ESL's responsibility to show off the place that we're at, right, and give people the experience of being in this place, because Malta is looking for tourism, right? They don't have exports. They don't really have any natural resources here. It's a very small place. So they're trying to, I would imagine, with some of the iGaming stuff and the crypto stuff they have going on here, and now they're looking at like esports. So they're trying to turn this place into a Mediterranean tech hub, right?
Yeah.
A place where nerds can come with the sun, which, you know, I'm here. I live here. I am a nerd and the sun's here. It's kind of cool for me. It's like I get to, you know, in Australia, I didn't get to be part of like the network that's out here of esports. So living in Europe and living in Malta, somewhere I have similar weather to my home, and I still get to be close enough for the video games is kind of cool.
To the point though, like too, like what Yanko said about creating content around Malta, I thought it was funny when I saw probably the most, only content I saw that was about a location at this event was Maui's food review of a Vietnamese restaurant in Katowice. Like that was the one that was made to showcase where people were. It was Katowice, which is weird.
Yeah. I guess like we should have been doing things, but this is the thing. What type of content do we do? Maybe it would be funny. Like if we had like hear me out for a concept, right?
Yeah.
Because we have to think about our audience. So how are we going to show off this type of content to our audience? Well, our audience is between 16 and 35, right? That's the core of our audience. And then obviously there's people younger, there's people older who watch, but that's like the core. So of that audience, how do you sell this place to them? Because that's one of the problems that we would have to think of how to solve here. If we had like, let's just say it's a bit more of parody, like tongue in cheek, and me and Henry live here and Machine as well. And we're here and we're being tour guides for the players, and we take them to Medina, and we have really no idea what we're talking about, but we're fucking spouting some I don't know, like something that could bring some comedy or some humor to advertise the place, because Medina is like this beautiful. It's over 4,000 years old. Was like the original city here in Malta. I think it was built like in 60 AD or something like that, right? The people would get shipwrecked on this island. The importance of this island, like historically, is kind of cool. And then you have the natural beauty that's around, as well as the cool weather. So like selling off the positives of this place is something that we would have to think how to do. When I put it like that, it doesn't sound that hard to sell, does it? Because there's some interesting things for different people. Like
yeah, I mean,
geeks.
Yeah, I was going to say you could have like break content, because of the amount of times I saw like 40-minute breaks on the screen. It was crazy. Like, why during that break do we not have like a 5-minute piece where like, maybe we get like a tourism guide in Malta to take us through some of the historical things, and you record like little 5-6-minute cuts of him going like, I think Henry told me, and I would assume this is true, this is one of the most bombed countries from World War II. Like it's got an incredibly rich like World War II history to it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know that's not exactly the sexiest thing for today's gamer, but something that's going to show off some of the attractions that can come to you. The hero shots of teams, like why isn't one of them taking place on the south side of the island? They have those like Dingley Cliffs. Is that what it's called, Chad?
Yeah.
That are like beautiful when the sun's setting. They have like St. Paul's catacombs. Like have a different team at each of these different like beautiful locations on the island, and your hero shots are there, and it's showcasing where they are and showcasing the island a little bit. And I mean, you could do it that way, but even just not even any kind of specific content, right? If you think back to, if you just want to draw like a comparison to an event that's very similar in its kind of idea that they had, is the Face It finals that were in Cancun. You know,
Sure.
like
Yeah.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
very much felt watching and being on that broadcast like you were in Cancun at a resort. You know, the desk was positioned with a view of the windows outside in one of the hotel suites. You know, I mean, this give or take this, but they gave us there was a stocked bar where the desk was, and we were opening
That helped.
shows, drinking like a margarita. Yeah, it did help. Taking like shots of tequila. We started the show one
1942,
day. Yeah, and it
Don
was like, I mean,
Julio.
you get a vibe that the players are actually in a destination, and you get a vibe like the tournament is actually there. And so you build the set around that kind of concept of like, okay, again, work with Malta. What kind of vibe do they want to put off? And let's build a show and build an environment around the show and around what we're constructing here to give off the feeling that Malta is the actual location of the event.
But dude, it's also one of the most hilarious things to me, as I think we talked about this a little bit in previous podcasts about what we think EPL should be and so on, and that like the two most entertaining like moments in the broadcast outside of gameplay
Yeah.
were when there were technical issues and the talent was actually allowed to do their work, right, and showcase themselves. And also obviously the Hooksy moment, right, him being brought in, and then also Kadian joining for the cast. I think people need to understand like this is also talent doing this, right? Like it's, you know, it was the guys on the broadcast who kind of suggested it live, or it's sometimes people behind the scenes just talking to, you know, people, hey, can we talk to this player, or someone offering, hey, I'm with this guy now at the bar or whatever, I ran into him in the player lounge, you want me to see if I can get him over to join the cast a little bit, right? And obviously there was like a lot of interactions as well, a lot of eyes on it, like people seem to have found it very entertaining. I found it very entertaining, the Hooksy thing, and also the thing with Katie, and like he brought a lot of great insight in the game. I was a bit worried because it's hard for a third guy to fit in, and like, you know, but he did a great job at it. And I think it was you, Chad, right, and Matt who were casting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think you set him up really well too. So it's like, wow, it took two tech issues for us to for ESL to be sort of quote unquote forced to do things that way, which we've been wanting them to do from the beginning, and it got positive feedback. So it actually might be our easiest like selling point, you know, making the case for ourselves for next season.
Well, we joke about this, right? Like in the sense that, like, when we had to do all the filling back in the old days because there were so many tech delays or there were so many issues, right, that were unforeseen because the game wasn't always taken care of as well as what it is right now, right? There would always be a lot of DDoSing back in the day with certain events, right? And there would be delays, or Valve would do an update on a Tuesday night, and there wasn't a way to do a beta client back in the day. So then what would happen is we'd just have to sit and wait for the update to happen, and we'd have to update the servers. And if you couldn't contact the person who fucking had the server box to update it, like you were there waiting for hours sometimes. There would and we would more often than not just be left to go and talk. And it was like podcast mode, kind of like we're doing now, but more pointed, or, you know, maybe it could be a bit more funny or whatever. And that's just guys who like Counter-Strike talking to each other with a microphone on, right? We're not just throwing numbers at each other. We're not just, you know, like, and we're having fun and that kind of stuff. And I know that the show is about the Counter-Strike, right, at the end of the day. But when there is downtime, and we have seen a lot of 40-minute break timers, like there's a lot of things we could do in those times, but we haven't been enabled to do it. It's like when you guys are offset, like it's just the three of you guys talking to each other and that same dynamic all the time. You need, like, everything needs to get mixed up, bring players in, have different bits to spice it up, right? It can't just all be very cut and dry, but it's all right. I think it's good, boys. I think things will. I'm in a positive place. I know that things haven't gone fantastically, but I think we're in a positive place.
I mean, for me, I was very disappointed with this season of Pro League, and I'm disappointed that things are going to be the way they are for the RMR, right? Luckily, you know, the games are all that matters, and there's a lot on the line. So, but you know, we're not going to be able to do as much as I think we all would have liked to. And obviously the RMR being so close to Pro League is a problem as well. But the fact that for the RMR, you know, a part of the major, we're not on the same location as the players, like the desk isn't and everything, for me, that's like unacceptable. Like, I can understand Pro League, it's 5 weeks long and, you know, there's complications and whatnot, right? But for the RMR, like, I think you just had to find a way to make it happen if you're ESL. I'm also not completely sure why we are in Malta and not in Poland again, for that at the very least.
Well, that's true. The North American players were flying today, but I guess because
But they're going to Stockholm.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's my point, though. There are people flying today. Like,
Yeah.
I'm saying there could have been a different location with 32 setups already available, right?
So that seriously limits what you can do. But I will say this, I've been more patient than most. Like, people have been losing their shit earlier in the year, and I understand this is a big merger that needs to happen and whatnot. It's not as simple as people might think, right? And now what's done is done, right? I think the major will be much better. I at least hope so, right? And
think about how Katowice and Cologne were, right?
Yeah, but if
they were good,
if the major goes great, then all of these things won't matter as much. And that's the last event for ESL for this year, so there's a lot of time until next year, Katowice or Pro League, whatever goes first. But for that, that's it. That's when you need to have your shit together. You can't have tech issues, you can't have audio issues, you can't have delays and all that bullshit. That's it. That's where my limit is, right? And I know they've been made, some changes have been made. Sean is coming in to oversee CSGO. I think that's a good thing. At least I'm hopeful, right? But we've been hopeful before as well about a bunch of things. So I think after the major is done and everything, you already need to start working on things for next year and put out just a better product.
Yeah, well, that's what we're working on already, right? Having these conversations we're having now, the ones we have in private, the stuff we want to pitch and take to them. I think the thing is as well, we're the ones who are always doing Counter-Strike, right? And I think I'm my brain's fucked, boys, you know that.
Yeah.
But my perception is everybody is as obsessed with Counter-Strike, right? And looks at it that, but obviously people are obsessed with different things, or they have different jobs or focuses or whatever. Not everybody is watching Counter-Strike for fucking 6 to 8 hours a day, and if they're not watching Counter-Strike, they're playing Counter-Strike, right? That's not everybody. That's obviously the smaller margin of people and groups. So that's something that I think if we offer up the stuff that we know, and we try and think about these things from sensible different angles, and offer solutions and good reasons and things that maybe could have positive influences on certain sponsors, then that's all good stuff, right? And the thing is, I want to try and offer the help, right? I think, and that's why doing this, it's weird, right? Because once upon a time we were just mercenaries, but now we don't really want to be mercenaries anymore. We want to kind of be on the ground level there, helping out and seeing if we can offer any assistance with stuff. But it's an interesting conversation.
I'll tell you what, though, one last final thought that I have on this is, you want to talk about a dodged bullet with ESL. Imagine if FaZe had won the Grand Slam here. Imagine having to be the sales guy who had to walk into the Intel office and ask for $1 million for the 5th season of the Intel Grand Slam and be like, this is what we did for season 4. This is what we did for IGS season 4. That's a real dodge bullet that FaZe got knocked out, because I don't think anyone would be raising their hand to be the guy to go talk to Intel after with everyone saw the trophy lift moment. It's nothing crazy, but just that environment to be in.
It was the same last season. Why didn't we care last season?
Well, because it was out of COVID. It was out of COVID. It was the first LAN back, and everyone kind of knew the constraints that were on the situation. We weren't even allowed to have a crowd. That was the event too, where the players weren't even allowed to leave the hotel. They had to have escorts to go down the halls in Cologne to run that event. So I think that fell into the COVID era of passes being given up.
Wasn't that Dusseldorf?
No, it was Cologne.
Dusseldorf was this year.
It was Navi winning in Cologne. It was the first event back out of COVID, wasn't it?
No, but they didn't win the Grand Slam there. They won the Grand Slam at Pro League.
What I meant was, I don't mean the Intel Grand Slam. Sorry, I mean even the trophy lift for Pro League last season was in just a studio environment in Dusseldorf, right? But we didn't really care then. Was that because of COVID? The one before, you bang on. Yeah, that definitely was because of COVID.
That was the tail end. I think that was one of those things where I think individually people as humans stopped caring about COVID, but as giant corporations with liabilities, there were still a lot of concerns about COVID. I mean, even the hotel we were at was
the Lexi B stint in G2 with that. Because he couldn't come initially because he got COVID, so they had to play with a stand and they didn't make the playoffs. So G2 had 5 weeks with no official games. Yeah, that's.
Oh, he arrived that night, right? And played two games or one game or some shit. Yeah, that was pretty rough. That's not ideal. Brutal.
But yeah, that hotel I remember was snapping at everyone for like not wearing masks around. But at that point, like COVID had felt like it was kind of over.
But I think also, I mean, obviously ESL made this deal with Malta, before the merger and all of that, right?
And
it
before
was
COVID, right?
And before COVID, and it was in a position where they just needed to find ways to make money. Really as simple as that, right? They need to find ways to lose less money, I guess, to begin with, right? But even back then, I would say it's debatable, but especially now, it's like, it's great for someone to offer you money to come to a place, but there needs to be like some certain minimums that they need to be able to fulfill outside and just paying you an X amount. Like, you need to be able to fill an arena with like 2,000-3,000 people, right? Like, let's say Odense. I think it's a great.
There need to be standards.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, exactly.
For the host
right?
country. Yeah,
yeah,
okay,
exactly. Right. So, for example, Odense for me for Pro League is fine. It's like
I think that is perfect.
I think it's great. Like, how much was it? Like 3-4K, 2K, something like that.
Travel's a pain in the dick to Odense.
Oh, come on, you get a long bus. You just go. You get a long fucking bus or a train.
Dude, you go to Copenhagen, which is easy to fly into, and then you have to like drive for an hour and a half or whatever. And also depends how
it was like. Wait, it was like 2 hours, 2.5 hours. That's a long shuttle.
It's in Denmark. It's like the Jetsons. Everything's perfect. There's no piece of trash on the ground. Everyone has a fucking Tesla. They're hover cars.
I do think Odense, I think, is a beautiful city. I would be happy to have it there. I'm just saying, let's not talk about it like it's perfect, like there's no negative. That is kind of a pain to travel to for. But I mean, it's on the list of issues. It's not a big deal. I just wanted to get that out there.
Yeah, I just wanted to bitch about something. I understand. It's in your DNA.
Look, it might also, in
Jason,
my defense,
turn your gain down for me a little bit.
Yeah,
just a tiny bit.
All right.
We're getting more passionate. It's fine. This happens over the course of the show.
Maybe it's as one of the few people who have to fly for like 17 hours to get to Copenhagen, having like a 2-hour shuttle ride, is a bit brutal.
Move to Europe, motherfucker.
Oh, get the fuck out.
I mean, dude, there's a 45-minute drive every time you come to Katowice, whether you land in Krakow or Katowice. So.
But I love that scenic drive. I get to see the Polish country.
Do you?
It is very green. It's actually very lush and it is nice.
So yesterday was the first time I saw the sun in like 13 days. It's just cloudy every day. Never mind. But yeah, the point being, the whole point was, right, that size of the crowd. It was just about, the point was only about the crowd, right? For an event like Pro League, that's fine. I don't know who's trying to sell it that way. I don't think not even ESL is necessarily. Pro League is not like a super prestigious event. It is what it is. It's like a lengthy event with a lot of games, a lot of volume, and it's a part of the Grand Slam, and that's why it matters. And for a lot of teams, they get a lot of reps in, and it's important for the lower tier teams that qualify for it. That's where we get to see some new talent for the first time, like that Nerds kid from Endpoint who seems to be very good, right? Yep. And also for organizations to kind of, get something back. And in the long term, Pro League, I believe, is going to be important potentially because of, things like revenue share for some of these smaller teams and whatnot and so on, right? But is it like, do players grind Counter-Strike all day because they dream of winning Pro League? No, they don't. They do it to win the Major and Katowice and Cologne and the Royal Arena event for Blast. And that's, kind of those are the like main events you think of when you think about Counter-Strike. So you need to make it more entertaining, showcase the players more. And then when it comes to the playoffs, it's still great teams. It's still a lot of money on the line. Everyone still wants to win. And that's when you make it like a bit more serious. And you are for sure still able to attract a big crowd because of that, because you have the world's best teams, the world's best players. And having an arena, something like that, 2,000, 3,000, whatever it is, a lot of times it isn't about the number of people. It's about the structure of the venue, right?
And like the setup, yeah.
Like that Blast groups that we played in 2020, in that studio sort of environment, that was like 200 people there, even if that, but it felt pretty cool. Like it was a small studio, the players were across each other, right? So you had cool interactions there, and when the fans actually did cheer or something, you could feel it as a team, right? And that's all that's all you need, right?
Can I circle back and I want to bring up something that I think that's probably a pretty important part of the conversation in my mind that we're kind of missing out on.
I like this.
we've taken a few episodes and we've heaped some dirt on ESL, and I think that's well and valid and deserved. But there's another party in this equation that deserves some criticism, and that'd be the teams.
Here we go. Oh,
that's the teams and the team organizations themselves, because the way that this league is structured is that they are part owners and partners in this league. They have a higher rev share of Pro League, and if you're a partner in this situation and your brand or your teams and your brands are the ones being represented, your players are the ones being represented, and you are a partner in the product, it's time to speak up. It's time to actually fight and say this isn't good enough. And they probably have more influence than any party, from the fans to the talent to the players themselves.
I'm with you, Jason. But I need to ask this question to you.
Okay.
Bloody hell, Yanko.
Yeah, Yanko.
Sorry, this is just Teams. This is just TeamSpeak. I muted myself on Audacity. Don't worry.
Oh my god.
For those listeners at home, he's just blowing his nose aggressively into the microphone.
Fuck, that was wild. Okay, the question I had for you here is, so we don't actually know what the Louvre agreement says, right? That's not a public document, I don't believe. Okay, so right, if we don't know what the document says here, I understand what you're saying. I'm with it. They should want a better product, but what should their contribution be in that consideration, right? Should there be like the players, because I know that we haven't, an environment isn't set up at the moment to get the best from the players. Like the best type of environment we always cite it was the Summit version, where the players feel comfortable and they want to come and spend time on the couch and chat with us, and we get some of those organic moments, right? Now that environment isn't set by ESL. But does there need to be something like, and let's just live in a world where it is set by ESL. Does there need to be something in those contracts to tell the players or the coaching staff or whatever that, hey, look, you need to spend some time in these environments over the course of the broadcast, giving your time to different segments, or maybe like not casting a match, but giving your contributions during a map? Because right now we work on the process of, if players would like to, right, and their management says it's okay, then they will come and join us.
Yeah.
And then our pool of people who are good at that is even smaller, right? So you have to think about those factors. So how do we kind of get that as part of what you're saying? Because I'm with you.
Certainly at the moment, I think a lot of that depends on the goodwill the players have and that we've built up as people with the players over the years, that they're willing to kind of come on the broadcast and trust us to not try to throw them under the bus or have a gotcha moment, certainly. I mean, they already kind of have that in a way, where they have those obligations, and media day, they're required to give certain amounts of post-match interviews. And, even if, the certain games where it's like, even if you're a loser, someone from your team has to come give a loser's interview. They have those requirements built in. I think the change would come because you would need to add some things for something like this, if it's going to be a bigger part of the show itself.
Sure.
And I don't think that should necessarily be a hard thing to do if you're ESL and you come to them with a game plan or an idea or a pitch to say, we need to change the attitude and environment and philosophy behind Pro League, and we're going to ask more out of you guys and the players. And then you have to sell the teams on that kind of a concept to get that added into the contract, or to get the teams to play ball with you.
Yeah, I like
but
that.
Then you also have to, show, hey, look, we're going to give your brand more exposure on the broadcast. Your players, you're going to have your team jersey, and your team sponsors are going to get more direct airtime. They're going to be more involved. We're going to help you. This kind of a presence from a player on a desk or on a couch or as part of the show in some way is going to allow fans to connect with this player and build individual brands that can then be lent to the strength of the organization overall. So I think that pitch comes later, but the overall philosophy and game plan and idea for the show and for the product has to be improved before you can go to the teams for that pitch.
But why do you need to, like, am I the only one who feels like, well, first of all, okay, I understand you have the contracts about, doing you have to do an interview after the game, and that's all fine, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think you should put stuff like this into a contract or anything. I think it should just be common sense. Like, again, we should all be on the same page here, like trying to create a more valuable product for everyone, so more people would watch it, so there would be more better sponsor deals, more lucrative sponsor deals, and then the pie gets bigger for everyone. I think sometimes people want to get like they're arguing about getting a bigger slice of the pie when the pie is super small to begin with, instead of just like pooling resources and everyone working together to make the pie bigger for everyone, right? There's even an argument that you can make that actually the teams should come to ESL and ask ESL to involve their players more, right? Like that would actually might make even more sense, so they could showcase their brand, their sponsors, their personalities a bit more, right? For me, sorry, Chad, just quickly, for me, it's also like you don't need to go further than the first summit, I believe, and the second summit when they like used different talent to see what the difference is, because I think that's also one of the things that you have experienced talent in for. We have relationships with some of these players, teams, and whatnot, right? And obviously, as you said, Jason, they trust us that we're not going to throw them under the bridge, under the bus, and
Or
and,
bridges
or
both
buses.
ways.
and yeah, you know, like, and take advantage of it, and they trust and they feel comfortable with us, and they're going to give more genuine answers and have more fun themselves and kind of showcase their real personalities, right? Like that's another thing that you get when you hire people like that.
Sure, I'm with you there, but so I want to ask then, because we're not at the point that we're talking about here, right? Why are we not at that point? What is the broader vision or lack thereof in Counter-Strike? Maybe it's the thing that's stopping people from doing this, from going all in, right? Because we obviously find Counter-Strike very entertaining. It's something that is our life. So is it really just the fact that it's counter-terrorist and terrorist and bombs, or
no.
like, what's going on?
I mean, well, firstly, I thought your question is why we're not there in terms of as much interactions with the players, and I was going to say that's because the show isn't structured in a way where there's room for things like that, even though it's gotten a little bit better lately with these moving sets that we had, for example, Cologne, and what we did in Dallas for a little bit, and then we bring in players to do post-game interviews there, and when we have more time, you know, we even, you know, do something on the telestrator and have them kind of listen to it and then give their piece, right? Did we guess it right or whatnot? So I think we should change our show in a way to be able to include the players more, especially, you know, in these group stages, in the early phases of tournaments. Obviously, you know, the players are going to feel less comfortable coming on the show, you know, or on the desk when there's 10,000 people in the arena, or coming onto a cast when there's, you know, 500,000 people watching, right? Like that also changes the environment for them. But as far as the sponsors, unfortunately, it probably is still a little bit of that bomb and C4 and AK-47s and
but I don't think it's the sponsors, right? It has to be the faith from the teams and ESO and everybody, right, to want to go all in. Because because we know that these teams make money, right? And ESO, like, well, what's the goal now? You have to think what the goal is now. Is the goal to run good Counter-Strike events, right? Or what's the plan? That's the thing. I don't know what the plan is. So, yeah, Jason.
I think in a broader sense, and this isn't just ESL, I think it's all operators that Counter-Strike has had over the years, and I think for good reason they've been stuck in this, but I think it's just the underlying philosophy needs to change, because I think there's kind of two ways to take the angle, right? Is like you either are looking at Counter-Strike and you want to make more money off of it, and one avenue to go is to say, let's find some ways to cut some costs and have our margins kind of grow that way, and try and do, like, you know, the same amount that we're doing now with less. Or the other way is to say, okay, now's the time that we actually need to build a more compelling product to be able to grow it in that sense, and to be able to bring more money in, and to be able to create something that fans want to engage with on a deeper level. And that's the philosophy shift that needs to occur. Is at the moment, like, nothing, if you just look at the tournaments that we've been running, nothing has significantly changed in the past 5 years. Let's say 4 years, maybe.
There's definitely been like adjustments, like tweaks of things, like the HUD's gotten
Yeah,
better,
but
or
nothing
like segment structures
significantly,
changed,
you know?
or, you know, we've had new toys come in, like different ways to telestrate. You know, that, like, the thing is, we've had ups and downs, but we've never really maintained that level. Like what Yanko was doing when he was casting with Dinko in Dallas and drawing mid game, like that should be like a mainstay in something like Pro League. And it would be great. Like, I would love this to be going down. Like, let's say I'm casting with Alex and Yanko's there. He's watching the game with us on the couch, but his main focus is once he sees something, he's then going to bring it up. This is what I did in the trio shit with Alex, Henry, and myself. Was like, I would mainly be focusing on that. And then when something happened, like a smoke or something that like was a cool strat or whatever, I'd bring it up. And then in one of the dead moments, or maybe not even a dead moment, if I could explain it quickly enough with the thing I just built, I could show people in like 15 seconds, be like, yeah, we're moving to the CT half. This is their gun round setup that he likes to AWP here, and then sets that tone. And then we take that into the round.
Yeah,
and
but
I'm like, all right, yeah,
that's small potatoes. Like that's
no, it is. But all of these things
that's not
going to
move the needle, right? Yeah, like, but that's
that's one example of the things
right.
that they've added, right? Like in the past as well, we have had like in Pro League with a bit more of a fun vibe, like having Rush being able to chip in, like do communication with the observer. It's something unique. It's something a bit different. Having like what did we do with Nealon one time? We had it so that we showed Nealon we were on the interview directly with Nealon, and we can show him on the preview a round, right, that happened, and something, it was this crazy round where they got lost in the smoke and two players made it past him or whatever, and they didn't see him, and he like lurked out, and we showed him that round and asked him if he knew that like he passed him in the smoke and shit. Like that's a thing that we don't do now, right? But all these things happened once upon a time, but we've never been able to maintain those cool little tools and shit. And obviously the tone, that bigger point that we're talking about, is all part and parcel of this. At least is the way I see it.
Yeah, I think just at the end of the day, and this is why the ESL deal with the merger and the Saudi deal and everything was so kind of compelling to me in this way, was that I feel like this would give the idea is that it gives the runway to be able to plan to grow things into bigger, to be able to like kind of take a step back and realize you no longer are entirely constrained like we were 5 years ago just by money coming in and being able to make that money, and you can actually come up with a more long-term plan to grow the product in a meaningful way, to start bringing bigger things into it and bigger partners into it, and actually try and experiment to see if you can make some products that the viewers and content that the viewers will engage with and the fans that will enjoy, that can bring more value to the partners and to the sponsors and all that kind of stuff. And we just haven't quite got there yet. And I think that goes back to the conversation where we're just like, okay, Rio's the last event of the year, some breathing room for ESL to look and assess some things. And just overall, I think that kind of philosophical shift from our TOs to where it's like, okay, now it's time to look ahead. Like, what's the next big significant step we could make to get this product to be to the next stage? Because we haven't got up the ladder a single step in my mind in like 4 years, 5 years.
But I guess that's the way we've been thinking about things, and now we're actively
out of necessity.
Things, right?
I'm not trying to be like critical of not that kind of progression. I think we know from our close relationship. We're just ready now, and I think that's the expectation that at least I have.
Well, we got to think about this. Counter-Strike, it turned 10 years old at CS:GO this year, and the game's been 20 years, right? Like we're rounding, but like you think about those factors, and you think about where we started. Like I'm sure we mentioned this on the show before, but like watching games back in the day was staying up till late at night because of the time zone I was in on IRC watching the scorebot. Or maybe I was fortunate enough where there was a GoTV IP and I could get like a Winamp plug-in and be able to sync up Paul Red-Eye Challoner to the matches that are happening in front of me, so there was commentary and I could be my own observer. And then now it's obviously evolved into this big production, and we have different streams in different languages all over the world and different TV takers, and you consider the fact that there's co-streaming and there's all of this shit going on, and just I understand, like I'm reminiscing a bit about how far we've come, but we have come a long way in a short period of time, and
also
maybe
also too, I think sometimes we get a little bit harsh on this and impatient with this with our TOs and the people we work with. I mean, we also have to remember too, there's also like a massive industry-wide technological shift with live streaming. Like, it is still very, very young in the lifespan of live streaming. And as you just mentioned, like co-streaming, nobody knows how that's going to fit into the bottom line in any way. Nobody knows the right way to utilize that as a TO, right? Like, even Riot's been doing it a lot over in Valorant, but then all of a sudden you realize, the main broadcasts for Valorant sometimes seem like underwhelming in terms of viewership because co-streaming is such a big part of the viewership of the growth. So, and that's something that I would imagine TOs don't really want to have happen, is shift the importance to like individual streamers co-streaming your events where you can't really control entirely the content that's being put out. So I think there's a lot of technological.
It's almost as if, Jason, nothing can make up for not having a great game.
Yeah, true.
I mean, Counter-Strike is so appealing in itself that you don't really need, everything, like all stuff is a bonus. But games like Valorant, especially early on, they need to make them more hype or whatever, right? You bring in those big names, and all of a sudden, wow, it's all this. But you take out all the fluff, and how fun is the game actually to watch and to play? Yeah, I'm sure there is a certain amount, for people, otherwise no one would be playing it. I'm not disputing that, but the more you have to do around it, the more it tells you about the game itself.
Well, it's also It's different strategies, obviously.
Also, that's not entirely where I wanted to take it too. Because, for instance, I think actually this co-streaming thing that ESL is doing with Gala is at the Rio Major is going to be massive. I think that's going to be huge. I think that's going to be like something that when they see the success of it, obviously Gala's in a Brazil Major is going to be like far and away like it's going to be like it'll be like the new example of what co-streaming can be. But I think that's going to be a strategy based off that success that ESL is going to be looking at and saying, how can we incorporate this more into our events moving
Wouldn't
forward?
It just be go to Rio more? Like,
well,
really?
no, but like,
I'm being serious. Wouldn't that be because you have to think about this. Golas is a unique market. You're not going to get like a fucking, I don't know, an XQC to, I guess if, actually, I don't think so. I was going to say, you're not going to get an XQC to stream and create like an environment like Golas has, right?
Right. And I think it won't be as big, but like I think that's going to be something where they look over towards Katowice and they're like, why don't we have Pasha come and do like a co-streaming event,
exactly.
for a day.
I think that's
like,
I think the answer is do it like get the main guy or main couple of guys for that region.
Yeah. And so I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see how they build off it, because I think that's going to be huge. And I think Counter-Strike needs that kind of stuff, because that's part of the industry that Counter-Strike has never tapped into.
Yeah, you get like Pasha and Isaac in Katowice. You get, how do you pronounce that guy? Pixel in Germany, I guess, in like maybe someone else, right? In the US, obviously, then you have Flom as like the current one, but you could probably like get Tarek and potentially Shroud to, I guess Shroud, you might not even need him. He's probably too expensive at this point. But
grab a Tarek.
Tarek, like Stewie at that point potentially as well, right? And then I think that's the way to go about it. Like just locally in the scene, you tap into that sort of, because that's obviously where the majority of the fan base for that streamer is going to be, right? And that's how you can make this like cool addition and a crossover, right? I think that's actually probably the way to go.
All right. Well,
do we want to touch on the RMR, or are we out of time? I don't know what
we've been going for 50 minutes, so we still got a bit more time.
Time flies when you're having fun, right?
Yeah, I was just looking at I was looking at the 3 p.m. thing, and I thought Yanko had to go do makeup for
no, that's at 4 p.m.
Oh, nice.
Come on now, Jason.
My bad. I don't know.
So we have the RMR, but first we have a little bit of the dramas. Like,
wait. Oh, the dramas? Okay. Mine wasn't drama. What's your drama?
Well, there was a couple. We had a couple. Like we had, obviously, I mean, the actual report after we touched on the conflict injury was that he was actually in the fight.
I read this out on HLTV yesterday. This was something special, Yanko.
But I think that was also like, we commented on it, like I guess all of us on Twitter probably or something like that. It's just like one of those things where it's like, come on, man, like are you actually serious that you are allowing yourself to get into anything like that? And then it's also not a massive surprise probably to a lot of people either.
Well, also, he violated our number one rule of working in esports. All you have to do is not fuck it up.
Yeah, exactly. But so like I think like you look at some of the context in this specific one, right? So with the report that's out there, it says like there was an eyewitness who's like a named eyewitness now, and then even at the bottom of that Jackson document article, it says that they verified it with other eyewitnesses, right? And the story lines up. So the story goes that this is the report. I think the guy's name is it's either like Michael or Michel De Jong, is the guy referenced in the article.
Chris J's brother.
Sorry?
Yeah, Chris J's brother.
Yes. But he goes on to say something like the guy kicked Config and spat on him, I'm pretty sure. Let me see if I can bring it up here, Jackson. So this is the thing, like the report, I would be pretty upset if somebody spat on me. People should never fight, right? Don't get me wrong. But like getting spat on, the promoter spat in Config's face, kicked him, and disappeared into the nightclub as bouncers arrived, De Jong told Jackson. He added that he offered his help as a Malta resident. Some minutes later, the promoter left the club. Config noticed him and wanted to go for him, De Jong describes. Config saw him and ran after him. He was unstoppable. I followed a few seconds later because I was worried, De Jong said, and added that he tried to get Config back to his friends, but it was too late. They went into a fight with fists and kicks and went to the ground when Config shouted that he broke his leg. According to De Jong, an employee from a nearby hotel came to the scene and called the police, who arrived minutes later with Config's group of friends. He goes on to say, I've experienced some pretty wild stuff on Malta, but this was pretty crazy, De Jong said.
Yeah, I mean, it's just mental. It's also, I realized very early on at DreamHack Winter 2015, the infamous Richard Lewis Loda moment as well. it's like you just can't get into physical altercations in esports, especially if you're not universally liked by everyone, because people will be out there to get you and like frame the story how it suits them, or just even if no matter how the story goes, no matter what the facts are, people will find a way to turn it against you. And not to mention, for actual players, it's your livelihood, right? Your hands, that you would actually use them in a altercation, right, and put them in danger, and being potentially unable to like, perform and play and whatnot is just ludicrous, right? Like anyone who doesn't realize
Well,
that, who needs that to have explained to them, is like, how are you even in this industry?
well, they're clearly well known enough, right, to be noticed on the street of Malta, by the way, right? Like, so this guy, it says in that piece that where is it here? I want to make sure I get the quote. Okay, so De Jong enjoyed a night out with friends in Malta and enjoyed a snack on the way home. Suddenly, he witnessed an argument that quickly escalated between a nightclub promoter and a guy who he recognized as Config, as he follows CSGO a lot, right? He follows CSGO a lot is the quote there. So this is somebody who watches Counter-Strike, knows who Config is in the context of things, and has noticed, because like a fight like this in Pastreville probably happens all the time, right? Like this is, if I'm going to be honest with you. But because it's Config, you're right, Yanko. Like you're a person who's known by a community, and these things unfortunately have ramifications, right? So, yeah. And again, people should never fight. Don't fight. Fighting's bad. Don't fight unless you have.
Yeah,
No choice.
I felt like we needed to comment on it, but I didn't want to, like, there's not really too much to talk about. He's just
Yeah. Well,
an
no,
idiot.
but it does go into the next piece of news, though, right?
Exactly.
Yanko?
Yeah.
I think you're like right in bringing this up, because now today as well. This was this morning at 8:15 a.m. that this Christian slot guy, same guy who wrote the piece about Config, revealed that NIP and Astralis are in discussions of getting device back for Astralis.
Yes.
So, yeah. Now, the thing here is the way that this ties in, it would have been, and this is the thing, actually, Farley, during the group stage, he was actually playing pretty well, right? And there was even an interview with Farley where like they asked him about the device rumors, and he was like, yeah, look, I can only do what I do in the server. So I think he had the right mentality for all of this. But the idea that Device could be rejoining Astralis with the team that's there right now, it's like, oh fuck. So they're currently using Mister as a stand-in, or that was the substitute from the Astralis talent team to play the RMR. And if they don't qualify at the RMR, then because I think if they qualify to the RMR, then Device could join after the RMR and then play the major, right? That would be his return straight back into the major, which could be fucking crazy. But you think about it the way it is now, like if Config's out and for this reason and he's not allowed back, or it's too bad PR, we don't know what the fallout's going to be with Astralis here, right? We have no idea, and concerns to Config in the team. So then what happens? What happens if they don't make the major? Like Device still comes back, and then they have to, I guess that they have 6 months to kind of get in shape for the next major. What roster changes do they make, Yanko? Like, what are we talking about here, boys? Because this is actually pretty fucking crazy.
I thought the Config thing was going to be a blessing in disguise for Astralis anyway, because they had this role clash thing, and then Glaive could finally stop playing anchor and could play rotator again, which would probably help him a lot. The thing that I don't know is this, Chad. Can Farley just be a rifler? Because he's had like decent rifle rounds. Like he's been good with the rifle, right? At times. So then you just put Device in instead of Config. You move Farley to anchor. Device is the opera, and Glaive plays the rotator, right? In those roles with Blame, they like Config did with Blame, something along those lines. Or you can also just get rid of Farley altogether and get like a different rifler, because Denmark has so much talent, right? I feel like that's the way you go about it.
Yeah, I think the play is. I don't think there's a world in where we see Device playing at the major. I don't think there's a world in which he comes back before Rio, even if they do qualify. I think that's going to be.
Hold up, boys. Hold up. Okay. Jason, can you repeat that again? My headset just kind of zapped for a second. Sorry.
Yeah. I don't think there's a world in which Device plays at the major. I don't think there's a world in which he comes back before the major. I think he's going to be a signing that's officially announced afterwards. And I think you go into this, if you're Astralis.
Why not?
I'm spreading fake news because I just read this. Device is not eligible to play for Astralis if the team qualifies for the major, as the rule states that a team cannot adjust their roster between the RMR and the major. I thought that I didn't think that there was a a roster lock
Okay.
situation in the original rules. I'm pretty sure. I'm going to
So
see if I can
Jason's
find
right,
them.
of course, again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
as
keep
always.
your point, Jason. I want to see if because I thought when Valve released the rules, it didn't say anything about a roster lock. I was talking to Striker about this. I think maybe I misinterpreted what it said, but I'm gonna go see if I can find it with Striker.
But
and see what
yeah,
we
I
were
think
talking
I
about.
think you go into this major, and I think the assumption's got to be devices coming back for Farlig, and I think you go see what Mither's going to give you at the major in Config's place, and if he actually performs well and shows good things, I think you slide him over and bring device in, and then you kind of go from there with Mither just being moved up to the main roster and Farlig being out and device in his place. I think the real kind of tragedy of this is I think there's I would hope in my mind I'm sitting here looking at Astralis and I'm like, this is where I think they've got to be kicking themselves for not trying to pick up any of the Copenhagen Flames players that were like discounted fire
There's been
sold.
multiple situations like this,
Yeah,
hasn't there? That's the
like it's
crazy
just
thing.
one more where you just sit there and you're like, fuck, this is like a mistake that's like had like 5 times compounding interest on top of it. Because all those guys from Copenhagen Flames are still looking good in their respective teams right now. I mean, not blowing and lighting up the scene in any way, but still looking like very solid players and very dangerous players within their respective squads. So, yeah, I think this is kind of an area where I think Astralis is going to realize they've sort of mismanaged the roster to a certain extent. My question is like it's with Astralis, it's I'm so lost at the moment of where Zipix is in terms of this team, in the sense that, you know, for a long time underperforming Zipix, having a tough time finding comfort within his role. It seemed like he was going to go out a couple of different times over the past like year or so. I'm just wondering, does it feel to you guys like he's got like a solid ground to stand on within the roster? Is he still in shaky territory?
If this goes the way that let's say worst case scenario, Astralis don't qualify for the RMR. They don't qualify for the major at the RMR. That's like catastrophic, right? And it's a potential that it could happen, right? That they might not make it because the quality of teams and the fact there's best of ones here, like there's always a chance. Because let's say that a couple of teams get upset in the first round, then later on Astralis somehow get matched against one of the better teams. Maybe they don't make it, right? If they don't make it and Device is coming back, they can do a complete rebuild, right? There's no reason to like if you're don't just bring Device in and go, okay, well let's work with the pieces we've got. If you don't make the major, then make some drastic changes here. So bring Device back in, probably keep Glaive to in-game lead, and keep Blame, of course, right? And then bring in 2 more like, I don't know, Danish up-and-coming stars, talents, something that out there, or move aggressively and try and poach. I don't know. I guess poaching's going to be a little bit harder, but I think you need to do something a bit more aggressive, right? Because if you're going to have a 6-month runway until the next major anyway, start now. Like, start building the base right now. And if you do have a couple of good players that you can bring into a system, and Glaive like is able to use these new pieces and adjust to the way the game's being played right now, that might be a better method than holding on to what you have. But if you qualify for the major in the RMR, hold on to what you have, rejig the roster around like you're saying, Jason, and then try and bring Device in after the fact and see what works best. Because if you have all these people on contract anyway, right, do with them, try what you want, because like that's probably the way this is being managed now. If you're the guy at the top and because it's big business in that sense. Oh, I'm already spending this much money on this guy, and if I bench him, my stuff to pay, let's just try and see, right? Let's not spend crazy money more. Let's just see what we can, and that might be the angle. And if that's the angle, then fair enough. I don't do the books over there.
Here's what you do, how you blow up that team and what you do. Like, Zipix is 27. And also Zipix, if he doesn't decide to learn how to in-game lead anytime soon, I think, you know, his career is not going to last for too much longer, right? I think
you think
he's
he
there.
could in-game lead?
Well, I don't see why not. He seems like a smart guy, right? Like,
knowledge-wise, yes. Personality-wise, no.
Well, you know, we'll see. But I'm just saying that for his own sake. Otherwise, what you do is you obviously keep Blame, you keep Glaive, you keep Device, assuming Device goes there, and you pick up Stair from Sprout.
Good shout.
And you could potentially even get Zyphon from Sprout. They're both 18, very young, very hungry. You have that young blood. You have Blame is like top 5 riflers this year. Like, it's him, Yakin Nico Exile, and I don't know who else you can put up there from the top of my head. Like, but those 4 kind of stand out to me. Probably like Twists or Props or Rain. I guess someone from FaZe, right? And yeah, you get those 2 kids. Or arguably, you would probably prefer to be able to get someone like Shush to play anchor for you, or Tessis. But those guys are not going to leave Heroic. They're like, you know, blood brothers over there or whatever.
Wouldn't you just make Blame do, like, I understand you're saying Blame really solid rifler, right? But you're going to have him, you could have him as your more active lurk, or he's still like can anchor bomb sites and shit, I would say. Like,
Yeah, but I would let him do whatever he wants to do, like because he's playing so well that and devices the upper gets a lot of freedom, and then the rest. And again, as I said, if Glaive is still going to be useful at tier 1, he has to play rotator and play off of his game sense and not play anchor, and you have to rely on his mechanics. Like,
well, that feels like
he
modern
never-
in-game leaders, right, Yanko? A lot of them
Yes.
are pretty aggressive. They have to be in the thick of things.
yeah, kind of. And then you have these two kids, great mechanically, and you can rely on them to play anchors for you and kind of learn the game a little bit as they go and be able to put in more numbers, right? But you have your 3 most important players already in the veterans. You have your opper, your in-game leader, and your like star rifler slash lurker, which is a role that needs experience, right, and veterancy and whatnot. And that's how you do it, right? You stop wasting time on Zipex, and he was great when he was good. He was great for you. You would have won all the titles without him, but he has just fallen off, it feels like. Maybe, but this is the thing, you would maybe want to say, okay, when you make those changes, keep him for like 3 months, maybe with a good team around him, and he can deliver again. But then you're wasting potential time that you could have had. If you're rebuilding, then rebuild. If you're gonna blow it up all the way. Don't like do it half-assed.
If we narrow the scope down to just focus on device, what kind of level do you guys think he's coming back to? Like, is this going to be like a triumphant return, or is this going to be a return where 3 or 4 months from now we're like, ugh, man, this is a bummer, but he's really not where...
Everyone's gonna have crazy high expectations, right?
It's not going to be triumphant, but it's going to be better than what Farlig or Lucky were doing. So that's all they need.
So, I also want to just build on the bit Yanko said and tie that into this question here, Jason. Like, device as well. Yep. He's 27 now, right? These 2 young guns that Yanko's just mentioned are both 18, and that could be good for the future of the team, right? Because you've got Glaive. Let me check how old he is. Because I'm not saying people can't continue to play, but they're not going to be stars as they get older and older, right? They could be a bit more role playery. Glaive's 27, and Blame F is he's 25. So the team is already like an older team in the mix of things, right? If you brought in these 2 18-year-olds, that's you're building for the future, and you've made some proactive moves. You tie that in with the return of device. There's no reason he can't come back and be in like amazing form, like the type of Orca he is and the way he approaches the game. And if you take a look, like he's played quite a lot of Face-It games. I know that's not like scrims or anything like that, but we don't know what he's. All it is that Face-It games are public. So he played a lot up until like the 29th of September, and then he played again one yesterday. But he's just like, this is real though, right? I know that we're looking at Face-It games, but
I'm not laughing at that. I'm just like, they just announced the talent for their RMR, and some of these catches, dude, of us, like yours looks amazing, Chad. But for example, like Kassad's nose looks real weird. Anders looks like a Picasso painting. Like, I don't know, some of them are just like, I don't know.
Anders has a nice pinched face.
Yeah, I'm sorry, right? But for all the listeners, you will probably already see what I'm referencing.
Bled looks like a face swap app has gone wrong. I like him though. Stylistically, I think it's cool. I like it. I'm happy with mine.
Look at me. Like
I think
yours
Yanko
is the best,
great.
Chad. Yeah, yours is the best, Chad.
Fucking little anime character as per usual. Fuck, I thought Yanko was laughing at my point. I was like really getting into the advanced conversation. I was like, is it that bad? I didn't realize referencing Face It was that bad. I was just trying to see the activity of him in the server, But that's the thing. Like, I guess it depends on where the team's at when he comes in. Because I think no matter what happens, the Danes are going to see him from an angle of, this is our fucking knight in shining armor returning to lead us to the bastion of hope. He's the chosen one. And like, imagine if the story plays out like that. Imagine if they do aggressively make some roster moves. He comes in, he has the new generation, some young guns to take under his arm, back in the server, fucking toe to toe with the Simples and ZywOos, open away, bang, bang, fucking Blame, rifling like a god out of his mind. Glaive's back in the mix, getting these crazy pushes. He's keeping up with the young in-game leaders. It's sick. That's a story. We're selling it. Bang. Put it on the side of a bus stop. It's happening. They return. They get a couple more majors. Because who knows? Like, I'm not saying device comes back, it equals major, but you could build that fucking story. And that's what I'd want to do if I was Astralis. I'd want to come in and say, all right, listen, we had a couple of tough years, COVID fucked us around a bit, but we've got some pieces here that we can work with. Let's make some aggressive moves. Let's show that we want to compete. Let's hunker down real hardcore. We're getting towards like the end of the time. We're probably going to win a bunch of trophies. Let's give it a crack and see if the Glaive device combo is better than the Dupree Magis combo, right? Bang. Fuck.
I wonder how tilted they are that the Vitality guys, the other guys just went and won a big event right now.
But they made
like,
one of
rivalry.
those type of like good roster moves, right? They saw a piece, they went, "This is what we need. Let's fucking make that trade." Bang, Spinks comes in. We now have a star trio over there. Magis was back in good form, right? You had some good play, some great play from ZywOo. You had good play from Spinks and Magis, and they won a trophy. Like,
yeah,
they made some moves, and
sure did.
Yeah, I don't know. Like that's the thing with Counter-Strike at the moment. The overall conversation, how like competitive is it right now? Because we were going to do power rankings. We might run out of time to do power rankings, but if we start talking about it now, maybe it works. Because we look at FaZe, we look at Na'Vi. They both got knocked out in the earlier stages here, but then we can bring in a lot of we could bring in a lot of factors, right? We could make a lot of reasons as to why. But I think the thing that we need to look at is the Counter-Strike in the server, right? That is the most telling sign here. Like we could say, oh, this wasn't right, or maybe it wasn't a crowd, so there was no intensity. That's fine. But the thing that we can look at in this environment is the Counter-Strike in the server. And there was some like rough moments for both of them where they didn't look like the indomitable selves, FaZe and Na'Vi, right? It felt like before those two, maybe some teams would push them, maybe some teams would take a map, but they would outclass them across the best of three. Then now teams are like taking maps, they're pushing them. It's looking a bit more awkward with the two of them, and there's names in the mix. Like just quickly, and we can dig into any of these as you boys want. But Liquid, okay, like they showed some. The world rankings for Hazel TV is going to come out today. This is drastically going to change the top 10. So it's kind of like their power rankings are about to happen as well. But Liquid look fucking fierce. Like if Yakinda can continue to entry like that and doesn't get figured out and they don't work out to slow him, and Elige doesn't drop off like he did in the final, like Elige Naf rifle combo is fucking sick. OC in the playoff form was fantastic, and Nitro, like, you know, he's doing his job. Like he's not always doing his job, but he's most of the time he's doing his job. So then you've got G2. They look pretty scary, but I think that they choked. They choked that 15-7 lead. There was some bad calling. There was 3 individuals who went missing. It just wasn't it. But you saw them throughout the group stage and in the game against Na'Vi what's possible. You saw it when Nico's just beasting and everybody else is doing their job. And then you saw Monacy beasting and everybody else kind of going missing. You bring Cloud9 in with the type of Counter-Strike they're playing. You bring Vitality in. We were just talking about them. Like you can bring a lot of teams in the conversation now. It's feeling a bit more competitive. Or are we being baited in by the nature that this wasn't on a big stage? And like what with the Counter-Strike, what is it telling us?
I'm gonna rely on just the Counter-Strike and forget the externals of in terms of a stage or in terms of a big event. And I know that's all a factor, but just for the purpose of this, I would just stick to the Counter-Strike. And this feels to me like going into the major, there's probably 5 to 6 teams that I feel like could actually challenge and win the major trophy, and you could make an argument for it. I'd put, all the challengers.
I got my notepad document out, Jason. Hit me.
I would say FaZe, Na'Vi, Liquid, G2, Cloud9, Vitality could all be contenders for the trophy at the major.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, you giggled. Would you
giggled
like
because
to? Would you like to share with the class?
Because the third team you said was Liquid. You went FaZe.
I went down the top 10 of the HLTV.
Yeah. Okay. Funny how you didn't mention.
Well, they're not contenders for the fucking. I didn't put EG in there either, which.
But you did tweet about them like.
I thought that was funny. You didn't find that tweet funny? Putting all the good teams in there and just sliding EG at the end?
Yeah, just like as if no one was going to know this.
That was like one shot of Irish whiskey, and I thought I was being hilarious.
Well, it was a good joke. I enjoyed it. But like, so that like right there, Yanko, do you dispute any of those names, or would you add any names to that list?
I wouldn't put Liquid in there.
Ooh.
I think they overperformed at this tournament a little bit. Obviously, their level of opposition also wasn't, up there, but you can't hold that against them in a way. You beat the teams that are in front of you, but the reality still stands, right? Like neither Vitality or Liquid faced FaZe or Na'Vi in the playoffs. Like Cloud9 and G2 did that for them, and then they just beat those teams. But yeah, I think, I don't know. I think it's more worrisome. I think it's outsiders are pretty good. Heroic, I'm not so sure yet. I don't know why they aren't playing better after that Yabi change. Like it shouldn't be,
Well,
it. I'm not saying I didn't expect that to make them, a championship team, but I didn't expect it to make them worse.
but what do you think about this as a statement, right? Like, I'm just curious to get your thoughts. I'm trying to just gauge where everybody's at. So when you look at that series, that was the one that finished at like 1:32 a.m. in the morning, and we had like the 2 hour long delay because of the Steam exploit situation, right? That's what affected them. Otherwise, that series was like mega close. It was, let me just bring it up. I'm pretty sure it was like two 16-14s, or was it like a 16-13, 16-14? Either way, they've already taken the event down off fucking HLTV's front page because we're already into RMR starting tomorrow, man. Like, god damn it. I've got to go finished event now.
I'll tell you, 16-14, 16-14, first two maps. And
Yeah.
Navi was losing on Mirage. Like,
Yeah.
they were down 14-11, and then they won 16-14.
It was a really good game up until
yeah,
the shit happened. Now, I'm not saying that's the reason they lost. I'm not saying what the outcome would have been, but I'm saying those two maps of Counter-Strike were really entertaining against Na'Vi. And then, like, what does that say about... Does that say more about Na'Vi?
Yeah, but it also did... Heroic always kind of played Na'Vi close, in a way.
So you think it's a matchup thing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say always. They had, like, games where they lost 2-0 and it wasn't close, like Pro League last season. But, they took a map off of them... at the Antwerp Major and also at the Antwerp RMR, right? And the loss on the second map was 16-14 for Heroic, right? Like, so, they were in a lot of those series. I think they just like kind of feel like they know how to play against them.
I would put Heroic as like an edge case to be in like one of those in that contender category. I think my issue with Na'Vi at the moment isn't really anything game related. I think if you compare the Na'Vi that we saw going into the Stockholm Major and even into Antwerp to a certain degree, but not fully, I think this Na'Vi feels very distracted to me because Simple seems extremely distracted, and I think in some situations, obviously with everything going on globally and everything with this country, like it makes sense and it's obviously going to be there always. But I mean, then you look at the drama around World 2K, and then you look at him picking a fight with a hotel over mold. And I think it feels like Simple.
So you think these are factors truly affecting Navi's performance in the server?
Yeah, because when Na'Vi was at their peak and at their best at the end of last year and even coming into the beginning of this year, the whole thing was just like these guys are like machines. Like look how razor focused they are on the game. Look how Blade has them like always so well prepared. Look at the way Simple is not only being the best player in the world, but he's also being a very efficient leader of his team, and he's being vocal. I think his focus has just slipped a little bit. In some ways, understandable, and I think in some ways that's kind of leaked out and caused him to drift off course a little bit. And that's what worries me the most with Na'Vi right now. I think they can snap back in. I think the skills in the game is all there, but I think Simple at the moment is losing some. His eyes are not on the prize at the moment in my mind.
But so like let's think about what Pro League would have meant for them as a team, right? Sure, it would have been a chance to get in the conversation, like into a Grand Slam, like okay, notching the belt there, but it kind of just feels like the next big one is the Major.
Yeah, but
right. I know what you're going to say here, but like, is that a fair excuse for people to make?
No. I can't include that in my analysis, because if we're going to go down the road of saying this team, doesn't really care about Pro League, but this team does, then all of a sudden the entire thing falls apart. Like I have to analyze teams thinking that they're all trying to win each and every event that they're at.
This is an argument, Jason, that comes up, right? Like where it's like, they don't really, because they don't really care about this event, the Major's coming up. Like this is not by like, I would say any actual pundit on air, I don't think. But a lot of the forum and the commenters have that commenters, not commenters, anyway, I'm having a hard time speaking right now.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
We got it out, we're going to try and pronounce things as correctly as possible. But people have that sentiment, is more where I'm going with this. And I'm just curious how that can be like a real sentiment here. But maybe they really believe that. I'm just curious from that angle, because I see it. I see people express that online in the forums and shit. But I don't know. We spoke about it. It's fucked.
I think the appropriate way to have that conversation is the way that FaZe have done it, where they're kind of talking about, a lot of the conversation about them that you hear from Kerrigan is making sure that the team is in the right direction and is about to peak at the right moment. you know? And I think if it weren't for like the stupid arguments between World 2K and the fight with the hotel, I could think Navi, you could have that very same conversation around Navi. But you don't see anyone from FaZe getting in fights with the hotel, publicly tweeting and having a spat with news articles, and you don't see him going back and forth on stream, you know, during a charity event, you know, bitching about things. And you know, I get it, Simple's got a very competitive mindset, but I just, that the publicity in the fights he's chosen to take feel like he is at the moment distracted to me. And that could be me reading too much into it. And maybe it snaps back for the major, but that's what it felt like for me at Pro League that I've been thinking about for the past 2 weeks, is that Navi just seemed distracted.
I'm sure if you asked him, he would deny it and say that's not the case. It doesn't affect him at all. But this is the first event this year that Simple is not in the top 10 players for the tournament. You know, out of all the lands that they've attended and the big events that they've attended. So definitely something felt off. I thought that the time in between their group and the playoffs was going to be enough for Blade to whip them into shape and like for them to play much better. And also, you know, that G2 series, they lose 2-1. But they were, you know, it was 16-9 on both map losses, but that wasn't like I felt the game was like pretty close and could have been much closer, right? You know, you go to Inferno where G2 wins the 9-6 side with JKS having 2 1v3s, right, in 2 really crucial rounds, right? If he doesn't win those, that half is probably 9-6 for Navi at the very least, or even more. Then on Mirage, there were a couple of rounds, right, where there was that round, you remember, where Hooksy stays alive by himself on B, playing around the smoke and gets like 3 kills, and G2 wins a flawless round. And I'm watching the game, sitting here, and I'm like, G2's like gonna get wrecked this round. Like the call was good. Hooksy was alone there at the start. They're splitting B on him, and somehow the bullets are just missing him, right? And the support comes just in time, and people like look the other way. You know, it's like small details in key rounds that make the game much easier to play from that point on for G2 and much more difficult for Navi. Now, you know, I don't want to take anything away from G2. They played really well on that day. That was some of the best Counter-Strike, maybe even the best Counter-Strike they played with this lineup so far.
Yeah, that's
right?
what they're capable of.
Exactly. And then we could see the next day when they're not as much on point that they're very, you know, mortal and vulnerable. So, you know, I wouldn't ring the alarm bells for either Navi or FaZe. I don't think there's excuses for them. You know, they just lost. They were the lesser team on the day, but I still think they probably are for me the number 1 and 2. You know, we should do at the very end here power rankings, like for all 3 of us. That would
well, that's where I was kind of building that here because I wanted to kind of get the pool of teams that we were talking about.
This is how I have it, right? Let me just open the ranking just so I don't.
How deep do we want to go? I was thinking of going to the top 10.
10 at the most, even if I can even get to 10. But I have right now, so power rankings for everyone unfamiliar is like, it's like you're basically judging the form, right, and the most recent performances. We're not looking at Cologne and all that stuff. We're just looking at, like, you know, at our eye test, who we think is like the hottest team at the moment and whose stock is up, whose stock is down. So for me, right now, I have Vitality 1, FaZe 2, Navi 3, G2 4, Liquid 5, Cloud9 6, Heroic 7, Mouse 8.
Just out of curiosity, can you make the argument that if you're just going to do power rankings based off current form, you just go by like the rankings of the tournament that just happened?
Well, you know, I also take into account not the
everybody
last
played
like last 2 tournaments. Not everybody played everybody,
okay.
and how
it's a shorter time frame than 3 months is what you're saying.
Yeah, and how the teams that I've seen play, how good do I think they've played?
And even if we like power rank them, like we could just because like this.
I put not Mouse 8, Outsiders 8.
Okay.
Mouse 9.
It's hard to get to 10, isn't it?
And then 10.
Maybe Furia.
I don't like Furia.
I know you don't, but I'm looking at it like then you're in the territory of like Spirit or like.
No, I would actually put Spirit there, but they played like shit, so I can't. I just like how they play. Yeah, you kind of have to give it to Furia or Fnatic, maybe. I would put Fnatic at 10.
Actually, yeah, Fnatic's not a bad one.
Fnatic at 10.
But so basically, what we could have just
because
done
you have to. This is the talk about power rankings. Vitality has 8 series wins in a row. They haven't lost a series in Pro League, and the only 2 series they've lost with this lineup has been to Navi and to G2 in the actually most important game at Blast, and that's after they beat them convincingly. They lost to them barely the second time around. So
yeah. Like, well, that's the thing, right? So it the balance that's being had here. Like, I am looking at the playoff Counter Strike that we just saw, and who is playing like the best Counter Strike out of that mix, right? And obviously, like, there's a lot of things here that I look at and I go, yeah, I really like what they were doing in games where they played their best CS. Like Cloud9, when they were looking tidy, they were looking real tidy. They looked procedural. Everything was on point. Flashes were on point. All of their moves were working. Everybody was hitting every shot. And then when things started to crumble, the exact opposite happened, right? In that Cloud9 Liquid game, Jason, they were missing a lot of smokes. They were missing a lot of basic utility that normally they'd nail. So then you have to question, okay, well, why are they missing this? Now, it's probably a combination of factors. You'd have to assume the pressure of the matchup first, right? People go, well, there's no, of course, there's always going to be pressure. It's a knockout match. For a grand final berth, there's always going to be an added amount of pressure to normal. That's just how it functions. Then you have other factors like, okay, so let's say that the pressure's playing in here. How much do you look at it that the pressure is being put on them in the server by Liquid? Is it the play style that's making them feel like they can't like line this nade up for as long? Or, why are they? What is the core reason that they feel like under that pressure? And I'm sure it's multiple things, but it showed in that matchup. So when they were on their peak, Cloud9 looked really hot. And I think that they have a lot of pieces that, like Inter's seemed impressive to me. Like, I'm talking from the rounds, like the things he's doing. I'm not talking about necessarily what the stats say. Like, I'm watching in the server, seeing the way he's moving around, the bomb sites that he's anchoring and holding down while the rest of his teammates are stacking together and shit. I think there's a lot of parts of that team that are really good. But I'm not talking a lot about Cloud9 to put them at the top of my power rankings. I'm just using them as an example of a team who we saw could be really solid and a team who could drop off if they, don't have their day. And it's the same thing with G2. Right, we saw the day before a good performance, and the next day a very flat average performance. Right, the fact that like that T side, yeah. And then I'm trying to look at other like Mouse. They come in, they have one game, and it's against Liquid, right, and they lose. Okay, well, so Mouse, when they had lots of games in the group stage, they were able to warm into things. The players looked like they got the groove going. But here they just
that was to be expected, right? Because they have no experience.
Yeah,
we had that.
But that's the factor.
We had that graphic made for them versus Liquid. Like, Nav has 94 LAN playoff matches. Like, and they don't have that combined between all of them. Xertion, it was his first. Nitro has more Valorant LAN games than in the playoffs than some of these guys have in CS. So
that's actually pretty fucking funny.
Yeah. So that's what you get. Like, you have to. That's one of these things that people forget. Like, yeah, you bring all these young guns. They're great. They're skilled, but that's gonna take a toll when it comes to the bigger games, high pressure situations, right?
Yeah, and then like I don't know, that's the experience factor that needs to come through. I'm trying to look at some of the other names here in the mix that were worth discussions. Like I like Outsiders. Like, I know that they had all that saving game on Dust 2, which was a bit of a snooze fest. But God. Look, that is the
really
extreme.
I think
this is what Yanko was saying on the desk. That Outsiders are the extreme of that, which is true. But they also have diversified their playbook. They have some faster players. They have some really cool stuff. James had a bad game that game. He doesn't usually have a bad game. Like, that's another thing. And the problem is everybody just takes their analysis on the last matchup. And like, instead of looking at the tone and the overall, like what's possible and the way it gets played, it's like, yeah, okay, like they lost that game against these guys. That doesn't mean they're just like shit. It doesn't mean they're just like bad. It means like in this game, these were the factors. And that's what we look for, right? Why are the factors as to why they won or lost? And it's not as simple as, yeah, this guy was at the bottom of the scoreboard. There's different strategies, pressure points that are being in play. Like, those are the details here. And when we're looking at these teams, and this is why when I'm thinking about ranking them, it comes with how complete they look as a squad, right? Like, are they missing moves? Are they bad at when it's slow? Do they have any players that they have nobody who can step up and go clutch in a big game? Because all of those things have to come in. So when you look at like a Vitality, a FaZe, a G2, and a Na'Vi, they all have like really strong individuals. There's not too many players on those teams right there who are a liability in the fragging department, maybe then some in-game leaders in whatever teams, right? But they still find their impact. They make some really good calls. They have good understanding in mid-rounds. They have lots of different versions of openers. They're able to, like, even though they have default A of banana control, which is their style, when they're going up against, I don't know, a different opponent. They know they adjust their banana control, and they're competent at adjusting their banana control. Like they have experience at doing that. And all of these things is showing how complete a team is. If Vitality can literally only run one way to get banana control and then they get countered and they don't have any other way to do it, well, then that's showing that they're not complete in that regard, right? So looking at all those details, I'd put like Vitality, G2, Na'Vi, and FaZe in the same bucket with like competency of players and like what is possible when things are going well, the communication's high, they're the ones dictating the pace, they've got some good moves and shit. Liquid's just outside of that. Cloud9's obviously in the mix in the conversation here because they play that really nice by-the-book Counter-Strike and are starting to add a bit more flair in there. And then Heroic, I don't know, Heroic, I think Heroic are good, man. I
like
think
them. I do too. I liked watching them at this event. I was happy with what they showed. Even though it's disappointing, but I think that especially after the disaster of bringing him in for Cologne, being for Cologne and just like complete failing. I think coming out and the way they looked at Blast and now here, I think it's nice to see them show some positive things that makes you feel like they can remain a very dangerous and competitive team.
We just don't get to see them as much anymore as we used to. Like they don't play as many games. I think that's just factual. I have to look it up. Like, let me go look at a calendar year. When was the last year when LANs were bonkers? 2019, right?
Yeah.
So if I look at a player and maps played, who was playing a lot in 2019? Simple would have been playing a lot in
Liquid, yeah.
Yeah, lots of finals. All right, let's go with the Liege in 2019. Right, this is gonna take me a while, but boys, fill the air while I look up this stat because I'm gonna have to fucking HLTV focus.
You know who's kind of dropped off the map? I don't know how to feel about this team entirely anymore. Like I'm completely lost about them, but I feel like they should, in theory, still be good to an extent. NIP.
Why?
I was looking at them. How is it going to be worse now?
How are they going to be
good? I don't know, but like in theory, I feel like they still should be relatively competitive from where they were.
About qualifying?
They've completely lost the plot. Like.
Yeah, the Alexi B one hurts, but I don't know. Something about this team makes me feel like...
Going back to English, Alexi B...
I haven't...
Rez is opping, Jason. Did you forget that? Rez is now the main opper
No,
of that team.
I didn't forget that. I'm just saying they were such a talking point in the first half of the year, and I haven't even heard
for all the
mentioned.
good reasons, and now they're going to be a talking point for all the wrong reasons.
Okay. All right, well,
so,
fuck me,
all right?
No,
look, Yanko feels strongly about this. Yanko, explain to us why you feel strongly about this.
I feel strongly about it because... for a number of reasons. Like, first, you're switching again from talking Swedish into going into speaking in English, right? That's going to be obviously I don't want to say necessarily a problem, but, it doesn't make things any easier, does it? Alexi B, who received his fair share of criticism from, like, his time in G2, he's the guy you're bringing in to like be your in-game leader. That's probably not going to go as smooth either, right? There's going to have to be a compromise made by him and the way NIP looks at things as well to some extent, which leads to a different problem is that Hampus decided he doesn't want an in-game lead. So, why is that even a thing that's being allowed to happen? How did you not stay ahead of that, so to speak, right? And then you have your most skilled player mechanically, we're definitely up there with Brolan at the very least, very great aim in Rez. He's going to be the main opper now all of a sudden, right? And because he had one good series against Navi with it, like, you believe that's just going to work? Like, it might work after some time.
You're changing language and the two most important roles.
Exactly. Like, actually, you are deciding to play the game on Nightmare mode.
That's why they don't think they have like probably like a 3 to 6 month lead time before we see them be like competitive, right? If they stick with this roster, because all the things I think we spoke about it on a previous episode where we like prophesized that if everything goes right in this formula that they're curating right now, how can you pull the strengths together? How can we look at this and like turn it into a positive or see how they can get the best out of all these parts? It's not going to happen immediately, right? I think they'll get the shock and awe factor immediately going up against like we're not going to know what to expect. So let's say that they're beating handedly the teams who are the tier 2 teams that are going to be the RMR. Then good. When they go up against the tier 1 teams, what are we measuring here? Well, we're not expecting them to win. So that already puts them in a position where we're going to be like, oh, look at this. NIP are close, or NIP have taken a map, and it's going to be like unexpected because we're not expecting them to do well here. So I think they're going to get like the leeway. And then if they
Listen,
do well out the gates, then that's going to be different to what we're expecting.
For me, NIP was a team that I can count on making the playoffs of these big tournaments. Just like the major, like in my pick'ems for the Antwerp major. Like I was pretty, they were one of the easier picks for me to put in the top 8 because they were playing good Counter-Strike, right? They got an upgrade with Brolin as well. Their T-sides were good, like things were working. Even without like a proper Opper, like that was a solid team playing good fundamental CS, and everyone seemed to have a good time. So the players were putting up like having good games individually too, and then all of a sudden after 1 or 2 bad tournaments, right, they just decide to blow everything up the wrong way, it feels like, as well. So now it's a team that I won't have any faith in, right? But so I see what you're saying is like, oh, so we'll think they're doing good because we don't have any expectation. But the problem is like that's bad in itself because they used to deliver and we used to have like reasonable expectations out of them. So that's how we need to frame it. Even when they win games, it's like, yeah, well, good, but they were already doing this before, so nothing to celebrate really too much,
Yeah. I don't know. It's just a shame because I think at the start of every season, there's been like, oh yeah, NIP have looked good in prac, or NIP have come out the gates and looked like okay, or we've been like, we've I don't know, I've liked something about one of the moves or some shit, and then it doesn't seem to pan out, right? I don't have any expectation for them. So for me, I can just put that there. But whether we should have an expectation for them or not, I suppose is the conversation that's being had, right? Now, I looked at that stat, by the way. So in 2019, Liquid played 222 matches. How many of those were on LAN? 183 of those were on LAN. Okay, that's an important piece of context, I suppose. And then this year on LAN, Liquid have played 90 maps. So with the events that are left, what do you reckon they make up? Like another 30 or 40 maps maximum?
I think even that's extreme. 30. I don't think
Are
they'd get to 30.
they?
Just if they go deep in tournaments, it's roughly like we're talking best of threes. If they go deep in tournaments, or if they go long in Swiss stages, maybe 15 maps per stage of Swiss, right? If it go
well, they're in the fall finals already, so they're gonna get some maps there.
No showdown.
Maybe 30 is about right. Depends on if they go to that world final, but I'd say between 20 and 30 more maps.
Okay, so people are playing less officials now. I guess same thing. It depends on how deep these teams are going in tournaments and stuff, but it's going to be less than 183. But that's the year where they're in every single final. So I think I picked a bad example. I should have picked I should have picked less polarizing teams, like teams that were just doing okay. What's a team that's just doing okay? A bigger team that's just doing okay?
I guess.
Okay.
Or Furia.
Furia's just doing okay. Let's check up on Furia. Why did I fucking pick 29? What am I doing, man? What are we doing out here? Now, we got to start winding up shortly because, Yanko, you need to get going, right?
Yeah, but we're also hitting the 1.5 hour mark. So
yeah, so that's good too. Now, do we have anything we want to cap off here before we get going?
Well, we didn't talk about the RMR at all. That's a mistake.
Well, I might as well not get into it now. I don't think if we're only going to talk about it for like 5 or 10 minutes,
Yeah, but I guess because we've been talking on the theme anyway. The number for 20. Let me just get this out. The number for 2019. No, this is fucking wrong. That's all time, mate. Here we go. Hold up. Here we go. 80 maps this year for Furia so far, and in 2019, 156. So that's a bit more of a disparity. That's almost double. Anyway, this fucking RMR stuff. We could quickly go over it, right? We don't need to talk about the Asian RMR. There's only 4 teams. The North American side, I guess we're just expecting the favorites, right, boys? Furia, Liquid should probably have in the mix here.
So I just filled this out a little bit earlier, so I can just say the 6 picks I had. If you'd like.
Yeah, smash it.
Furia, Imperial, Liquid, Complexity. I did throw EG in there, and I got Double O Nation, making it out as the 6 teams.
Okay. Yanko, who you got?
For what, sorry?
The Americas RMR.
Oh, shit. Americas. Let's open this.
I'll link it here.
AM, I got it. Okay, so Furia, Liquid, Complexity. Oof, 6 teams?
Yeah.
There's so many teams. Furia. Well, then let's go.
Freedom,
Furia, Liquid, 0-0 Nation. Fuck, this is hard. Furia, Liquid, 0-0 Nation. EG.
Yeah, come to the dark side, baby.
I don't know. Complexity.
The hard part is
complexity is gonna fail. They're gonna be overconfident. And they're
nah,
gonna
dude.
fail.
Nah.
And then who else do I pick? I don't want to. MIBR. I think they're gonna fail. Imperial is gonna somehow get another easy draw and make it, just like last year. And I missed one more team, right? Who's in pain now?
Skulls
Okay,
and
I'm seeing.
Hard
Zevi.
Zao, Biggie Zera, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pickle.
Oof. I'm gonna go with my boy Malbs in Team 1, man.
Bloody hell. Okay. I got Furia, Liquid, Complexity, EG, Furia, Liquid, Complexity, EG's for 00 Nation, and fuck it. Let's go with Pain. Yeah, there we go.
I
Done.
paint as my dark horse to get through for what that's worth.
All right. Okay, fair enough. And then the European side of things, there's too many teams to talk about here, but are there any names outside of the top that we think are going to get in here? I'm just going to quickly read through and let me know when to stop if you think this team has a chance. FaZe, NIP, G2, Spirit, Cloud9, Bad News Eagles, Sprout, Aurora, Fnatic, Fours, Eternal Fire, Bait, Ecstatic, Astralis, One Win, Game Legion. Like Eternal Fire could qualify. The type of Counter-Strike they were playing towards the tail end of the group wasn't bad. Because when 8 needs to get through here. Like Fours, I don't like Sprouts here as well. Sprouts pretty exciting. So Fours won't make it.
Fours will make it. Fours and Eternal Fire are in. Fnatic is in. So that's 3. FaZe 4, Spirit 5, G2 6, Cloud9 7. And then the 8th one is going to be rough. That's going to be a little bit of luck of the draw as well.
Yeah, well, that's always going to be a factor here, whatever matchups we get. So that will play a factor. But I agree, like in terms of like the Fours Eternal Fire, like I think they definitely, I think the way I categorized it yesterday was like Punch's chance. Like they have a good crack. They've got some good players. they definitely have a chance. The same with, I think Sprout, I don't know. I was excited about the Sprout roster. I haven't really seen enough from it though. Refresh, Zypher, Stare, that Longs kid and Slacks. That Longs kid was somebody that Ents were looking at, I thought, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe it would be exciting to see him. Like, I noticed we didn't say NIP here. Like NIP,
I think they're probably my number 8 team.
Yeah. And then what do we got here? The Group B. Any of these crazy? We're expecting Na'Vi to be in, Outsiders, Vitality. What do you think about Heroic, most likely? Then we've got Ents. Like, are we worried about Ents?
A little bit, yes.
Yeah, we need to see them play, right? We don't know what Counter-Strike they're going to be coming in with.
Problem is, like, it's all, a lot of, because of these best of ones in Swiss, right? Like, on day one, you can be 0-2 or 2-0. Like, if, depending on who you play, if you fuck up your first game and then the luck of the draw isn't great for you, if your hands, you can be 0-2. And then Ants can win 3 best of 3s? I don't think so.
After 2 days or after 1 day?
After 1 day.
Isn't it 2 days now? Didn't they split it up? Don't you only play 1 best of 3 a day with the format? Like, because they're doing Group A and Group B at the same time.
Okay, then yeah. Okay, I
think I don't know. I have to look at it. But I thought we did, like, the start of the day was Group A and then the end of the day was Group B. So then the next day we did another 8 best of 1s, right? We started.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's just 1 round on Tuesday, 1 round on Wednesday, and then we have the 1-1 games on Thursday and the best of 3s as well. So. Okay, so it's not only on 1 day. So yeah, I guess. And Ents plays Heat in their first game. That's not a lock for Ents. Heat is not bad. Like, Heat is pretty good. So, it's a lot of it is gonna ride on that game for them. I feel like if Ents goes 0-2, let's put it like this: if Ents goes 0-2, they're not winning 3 games.
Okay.
They're not winning 3 best of 3s.
Well, I get the only thing is that's really going for Ents in that matchup is when they played at Pro League. Ents won that series 2-0 over Heat. It was like 16-11 on Vertigo and 16-6. But this is the thing with Heat. I agree with you. They're not bad, and they know the environment, right? They were here playing Pro League, so they have an advantage as well over some other names, maybe not Ents, but other names in their group who haven't been here. So I'm expecting, like, there can't be a slow start this time, Jason, because you remember you were doing the first game. I think it was you, Jason, doing the first game of Heat, and Afro started like 0-12 or something.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty.
But then he got into it. He got better as the event went on and started showing some good form. Like, do we think Heat are a name in this group who could get through? Because you got Mouse, Falcons, Outsiders, Big, Heroic. You know,
I think Big is gonna fail.
Do you think OG is gonna fail?
Big. I think Big is gonna fail.
Yeah,
I think OG will make.
Big have a stand-in, so
Doesn't matter. They play better with stand-ins anyway.
yeah, that's
true.
Yeah, bit looser. All right, boys, let's pack it up. We've gone for an hour and 43.
Ooh.
Oh my lord, we've
So this
blown
will be a
right
long
past
one.
it.
We'll lose all our viewers now.
All right,
Listeners.
boys. All right, let's get out of
GGs.
here. Bye.
All right.
Oh yeah.